Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of LMScast. Today is the final video in our Ultimate Course Creation Framework series. If you're jumping in on video 5, that's awesome. We're so glad to have you. But make sure that you jump into the course itself, which can be found at LifterLMS.com/course clinic. Or if you're listening to us on your iPhone or Android device, you can just text us the word Course Clinic to 33444, and we'll get you enrolled in that course right away. It's a very simple 5-part email delivered mini course around how to build a online course that people actually want to take, and it helps you mitigate all risk around creating a course that no one wants to take, because no one likes that. So today is video 5, and it's kind of tying everything together. And it's called Designing Your Digital Classroom. So let me walk through where we're at and the kind of the progression so far. So we started out by focusing in on developing a potential student interest list of 100 people or more. Then we went through and found the magical education intersection point where our expertise and what we can teach has matched what our students want to learn, and we found that sweet spot. Then we've jumped into the collaborative course process and pre-sold a high leverage, high interaction kind of coaching program with between 5 to 10 people, and we've worked with those people. We've thought about ways that we can teach online better, and make sure that we're addressing the needs of our audio learners versus our visual learners versus our kinesthetic learners. And then today we're going to wrap it all together and talk about the classroom, the actual place where the education happens. And this looks a lot differently depending on your goal. So, Chris, in your mind, what are the different levels of classroom, and when do we enact them?
Well, we're going to get into the technology, and some of it depends on your resources, but there's definitely, you don't have to overcomplicate it. And there's definitely, at various steps, there's various types of things you need. So like in the very beginning, when you're just building your email list, you're just essentially, you need a place to collect that email to start getting to that 100 people, which might just be your inbox.
Yeah.
So we're starting with your inbox is where the conversation or the classroom starts, if you will. And it's going to slowly graduate up through the layers of technology. And as people progress up, I always advise people to always go with the simplest solution possible. Content and education first, technology second.
Yeah.
And keep the technology lightweight. Try not to overcomplicate things. And then as we move up, as we get into, we've got our 100 people. We want to start with the Facebook group and the Google Hangout. So you've seen that before. Like what's that all about?
Absolutely. Well, I'll break it down. I think we're going to talk about 3 different buckets of classrooms. So there's the bucket of collaborative course, which is like there's no real course created yet. You've got this instinct around, like, I know the students want to learn this. They've paid me for it. So the question then is like, how do I deliver it? And people get really tripped out, man. They're like, "Oh, I got to get all this crazy technology." It's like, no, you don't. You actually, when you
need a conversation.
You need a conversation. You need to have a couple. You need to deliver that coaching over the course of a month or 2 months or whatever you decide. But you don't need more than maybe Google Hangouts or Skype, and a Facebook group. And you want a place for interaction to happen one-on-one or one to a group, and a place to kind of house a continuing conversation that's not based on time or whatever, just an archival place. You don't need much more than that. And people trip out and they stress out and they go, "Oh, I need a WordPress site. I need this and I need that and I need this and that." No, you don't. So I think when you're starting out and you're really in those early stages of developing that course, I tell people, forget about technology, actually. Which is funny for me to say, funny for us to say, because we develop and sell the technology for the people at the upper echelon. But just at the beginning stages, you don't need it. I mean, you think back to the great teachers like Plato, Aristotle, Jesus Christ. I mean, you go down the line, Buddha, whoever. They didn't have a classroom. It was them in front of their student on a rock or wherever. So you're at that level. It doesn't. If you don't have the technology, it doesn't mean you can't be an amazing teacher. You just need to have that real intention and focus on learning.
For learning to happen, you just need a teacher and a student.
Right.
That's where it starts.
Absolutely. So don't lose track of that in the early stages. Make sure you focus on that, hit it home, have a great experience, decompress the experience with your students, and use those learnings to move into the next stage. And so the next stage to me is there's kind of an in-between stage would be an email mini course. You can use that to continue to test content, or you can use it as lead generation. I think it's really important to have email mini courses if you're teaching online, because someone who just found you on the web, found you through something, a tweet or whatever, they don't know you, so they don't have a relationship. So to move them into the purchasing phase is a pretty big jump. If I met you in a coffee shop and you go, I teach online internet marketing. You want to join my course? It's $500. I'd be like, dude, I don't know you. Like, no, like you're Chris Badgett. Like that doesn't mean anything to me. There's nothing. You're just a dude. Like
we don't have
it
a
feels,
relationship.
it feels shady. Like I don't know you. I don't like you. I don't trust you. Like, so you need to provide some value, and it's very worn out to say provide value and make sure that you're focusing on value. But I just look at it like let's take that off the table. How would you create a relationship with someone? And I think a really 3-part or 5-part email course lets your student see you as a teacher. They get to experience your teaching. They get to experience your vibe, your personality. Don't hold back on your personality either. Like you want your personality to repel as many people away from you as it attracts to you.
Yeah, your course is not for everyone.
It's not.
It needs to. I mean, it's not like you have to make somebody upset, but your message should like resonate like a magnet, and then also deflect people. So a really good example of that would just be, let's say you're doing vegan cooking show.
Right.
That's gonna repel the more meat focused omnivore people or whatever, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you don't like meat eaters.
That's important.
You're going for the vegans.
Well, here's the thing. Quick caveat. Red Bull is the most successful drink company, energy beverage company. I don't think they're more successful than Coke or Pepsi, but then again, they've been around for a fraction of the time. But when they created their flavor profile, they wanted a flavor profile that 50% of people hated and 50% of people liked. Where, opposed to Rockstar and Monster, they wanted like 70-80% of people to like it and 20% to hate it or whatever. They wanted like the majority. What was brilliant about that is if you look at the size of can, the price per ounce of Red Bull is astronomically more than Rockstar and Monster. And the reason is they have a really focused group of people that love them, and that kind of war against the people that hate them. And that interaction created a lot of free buzz and got them out into the world.
And that's kind of like the Apple versus the
Mac versus PC. Totally. Yeah. You want to have this polarization effect, and it's not that you want to go out and create controversy, but you want to make sure that you're you, and that you're not afraid to be you. So we're digressing and back into teaching, which I think is your and I's like huge passion. But
I've got a good segue to bring it back. When we think about our digital classroom, we want people to show up and look around the room and be like, oh, these are my people.
These are my people. That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. So the email mini course is important when you, I think for the longevity of a course or training business. But after so I added that in there as an in-between. Maybe I actually will retract the statement in between and say optional, because after you have the course created from the collaborative course process and you move into the evergreen course, that in between piece or the optional piece is more important for the longevity of selling that course than it is right out of the gate. Because you say you have 100 people on your interest list, you launch to a handful, like a small portion of that group is going to join you, for the to co-create. And then your evergreen course, you can go back to that list and launch it, and you'll have more people buy then. And then when you get into like evergreen course sales, then the email mini course is important. So let's actually switch gears and really focus on what we know so much about, which is the evergreen course. Chris, I'm going to, you've done so many of these. So like, what is an evergreen course first and foremost, and what are the essential things that you need to create one?
So now you've done your market research, you've done your early stage stuff with your early people, and you've got it. Now you're ready for a platform. And when we say evergreen, it can be passive or it can be active. So just because we're using the word evergreen, it doesn't mean you couldn't like open it and then shut it down and then move through people one step at a time. Or you could just have this continuous passive income kind of thing going on based on the content and your systems. But that's up to you. You can blend that stuff together. But in order to do all that, you need to make it easy with a web property to power that engine, to power that classroom. So that's why we created LifterLMS, which is a WordPress LMS plugin that you can interface into a WordPress site and have your classroom. WordPress is an amazing ecosystem, so you can extend it, you can keep it really simple, you can use third-party stuff and maintain groups elsewhere, or like, for example, we recommend a service called Zoom to use for like video chat rooms and live kind of group meetings and stuff like that could be integrated with your learning management system. But now we're dealing with like a more professional, polished, sustainable classroom that has a foundation under it to allow you to sell your courses, deliver your material, keep students organized. And then we have other integrations that come off of that to like our MailChimp integration for email marketing, or our Stripe integration so you can collect credit cards directly on your website for your access to your classroom. But that's now you're kind of at the pro level. You have something, you want to grow that classroom, whether it's all built around one class, which could be your area of expertise, like down to like a finite point. Nothing wrong with that. Or you could have like multiple classes, multiple teachers, and get into like a bigger model. But that's that learning management system. That's what that's all about. You've graduated up to that.
Yeah, and I would say that I'll break down a few things that I would really want to talk to and address. I go through these in more detail in the course, so make sure you go and enroll in that if you haven't already. But make sure that you own your content, because your content's your business. So regardless of what platform you're on, and this is why I'm biased and I love WordPress, is that I own it all. I own every single thing in that site. If you're going to another platform, you might not have that experience, So you want to make sure you own your content and you have control over it. You want to make sure that you have some sort of way of seamlessly integrating an email autoresponder. That's a big no-no. If your course isn't helping build your list and you can't get those emails, just don't even go there. And that's why I'm really kind of against the Udemy's and other platforms out there. I think after that, you want to make sure that you have a great user experience. And this is one of the things that I think people who are tracking us over at LifterLMS are going to be really excited about, is the themes that we are producing that run on top of Lifter are really going to create a one-of-a-kind learner experience that I haven't seen on the web in any platform, regardless of whether it's hosted or not. So that's really important, and I think we haven't done the best that we could do yet. We've really focused on the engine to the car, and now we're creating the body of the car, so stay tuned on that. And then I think assessment. If assessment is important, you want to make sure that you have tools that help you gauge student progress. This is less important when it comes to the soft touch courses. What I mean by that is maybe a dieting course. I don't think that it's like student success in a dieting course isn't whether or not they scored well on the quiz. It's whether or not they lost weight. You really got to be like, I leave assessment lower on the list because it depends on what you're teaching. It could be important, but you definitely want to have a way of how am I going to track whether or not my student is successful. So that needs to be a part of your classroom. And then you want to make sure that whatever platform that you use has just all the multimedia stuff ready to go. So that you can create video, that you can create audio. So you have the audio visual kinesthetic. There's other niche things that we can talk about, like drip content I do think is important. Prerequisites I do think is important. And just to be completely honest, all the things I'm talking about, LifterLMS does. So if you're looking for a platform and you're interested in using WordPress to power your site, just head over to LifterLMS.com. We've got a bunch of great information over there. But those are the things that I would consider. Again, I go into a different level in the Ultimate Course Creation Framework. If you want to see what a really rock solid course looks like that's built on Lifter, you can just head over to demo.lifterlms.com. Chris has put a demo together where he's building a course using Lifter LMS, and the course is around that's very meta and stacked, but it shows the power of the platform, and I'm excited about that. And there's some huge names that use our plugin, like Yoast over at Yoast SEO has used it, and a number of others. So, but those are some of the things that I would really focus on when designing the digital classroom. And
Let me just add, there's just a really big opportunity here, because if you think about how learning happens, it's not always just like maybe how you learned in a classroom with concrete walls and a teacher in front. Learning can happen anyway. So if I was teaching cooking classes, I'd be with you in the kitchen, and I would be talking about, explaining what I'm doing. You'd be looking at it, you'd be seeing it. You might be doing it beside me. Maybe you're doing it and I'm telling you what to do. But you can teach cooking over the internet.
right.
You're going to have a different set of challenges. So think about how can you get the same benefits or as close to the experience as possible from being with me in the kitchen to being with me through a website, through the internet, and get that same kind of experience from a results level, from an emotional level, from a connection level, from the it's okay to make mistakes level, all that kind of stuff. Like, the closer you think about how to marry that in-person interaction and make it real, sort of like how Facebook is kind of like friends but on the internet, the medium comes with its challenges. So think about that. That's where the real brilliance is how do you take that one-on-one experience and then make it huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that sums up the Ultimate Course Creation Framework. Thank you for joining us through this series, the LMScast version, where we kind of wrap over everything. But yeah, if you haven't signed up for the course and you'd like to take it, it's completely free. Just head over to lifterlms.com/course clinic, or just text us the word course clinic to 33444, and we'll get you signed up and you can take that free training. And I know if you use it too, you're going to save yourself a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of frustration, because you're not going to build a course that you'll hear the crickets chirp when you launch it. It's actually going to have some gusto to it because of the steps that I walk you through. So, Chris, do you have any final thoughts for people who are going out there and going to teach the world?
I would just say there's never been a better time with the technology and the opportunity and the demand for people to get the wisdom outside of you, or for you to build a business around some kind of learning. So now's the time, and that's what we're passionate about at LifterLMS.
Yep.
So yeah, come find us, come explore this podcast. If you're new to the podcast, we've got a lot of great conversations around these types of things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.